The same Democrats that championed race riots and yawned as American cities burned impeached President Trump today.
On this vote, the ayes are 232, the nays are 197. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table.
Smiling ear to ear. Let me just say how amazing it is and how amazing how fast these people move when they're dealing with something that directly affects them. Politicians, Democrats, lay around and play political games with your livelihood for months and months. Nothing ever gets accomplished, like with stimulus after shutting down the entire economy. They didn't care. They couldn't let Trump have a political victory. But with lightning speed, Democrats united to impeach the president for inciting an insurrection 1 week ago. And while we at Newsmax and every single Republican have condemned the riot, the insane rhetoric around all of this is laughable. Jerry Nadler today on the House floor did what Democrats always do, made everything about race, even when it made absolutely no sense at all.
We have a duty to observe, Madam Speaker, that racism played a direct role in this incitement.
Congresswoman Cori Bush from Missouri was just as ridiculous.
If we fail to remove a white supremacist president who incited a white supremacist insurrection, it's communities like Missouri's 1st District that suffer the most. The 117th Congress must understand that we have a mandate to legislate in defense of Black lives.
What anything has to do with white supremacy? No clue. Bush and other Democrats will never have to explain why last Wednesday was racist or why Donald Trump is a white supremacist. They can freely make comments this ridiculous, knowing the media will never ask them to cite credible examples. It's the beauty of being a Democrat. Among all of this race baiting, though, Nancy Pelosi, incredibly, decided to talk about her father today, Thomas D'Alessandro Jr., a man who dedicated monuments to Confederates Stonewall Jackson and Robert E. Lee while he was the mayor of Baltimore.
This is not theoretical, and this is not motivated by partisanship. I stand before you as a wife, a mother, a grandmother, a daughter whose father proudly served in this Congress, Thomas D'Alessandro Jr. from Maryland.
She also used all those pronouns that I think they just banned as well. But don't worry, Nancy, you're a Democrat. You are safe from any kind of scrutiny. By the way, imagine if Donald Trump's father had dedicated monuments to Confederate leaders 100 years after the end of the Civil War. Just imagine that story. How would that play out? And Eric Swalwell, the China-owned frat boy from California, simply dismayed that police officers who are suddenly so sacred to the left had to fight off a riot.
Capitol Police were spit on, beaten, stampeded, and one of them lost their lives. I'm not asking you to summon the courage that they did. I'm just asking you to do your job and hold this president accountable. The gentleman's time has expired.
Man, sounds like a Republican. Somebody should remind these people that our police have been engaged in combat with rioters since last spring. They probably haven't even noticed. The same people that have absolutely destroyed the reputation of the entirety of law enforcement in this country for political reasons are suddenly the party of law and order. Today was the most hysterical load of trash Washington has ever dished out. And finally, Tom McClintock, a Republican, spoke and brought a little bit of common sense to all this. He didn't go full Jim Jordan. He didn't haplessly praise the president. McClintock gave the president the appropriate reprimand and then absolutely eviscerated the left for all of this lunacy. Take a look.
If we impeached every politician who gave a fiery speech to a crowd of partisans, this Capitol would be deserted. That's what the president did. That is all he did. He specifically told the crowd to protest peacefully and patriotically, and the vast majority of them did. But every movement has a lunatic fringe. Suppressing free speech is not the answer. Holding rioters accountable for their actions is the answer. And we are. And if we'd prosecuted BLM and Antifa rioters across the country with the same determination these last 6 months, this incident may not have happened at all.
Let that wash over you. A little common sense. It was hard to tell, but actually McClintock, the congressman from California, was wearing a mask that said this mask is as useless as our governor, which I just thought was kind of funny. A little side note there. Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz had quite a zinger as well. Let's take a listen.
Words matter. But apparently those words don't matter when they're uttered by Democrats. When the gentlelady from Massachusetts calls for unrest in the streets, when the gentlelady from California brazenly brags that she called for people to get in the faces of those who serve and support the president. I denounce political violence from all ends of the spectrum, but make no mistake, the left in America has incited far more political violence than the right. For months, our cities burned, police stations burned, our businesses were shattered, and they said nothing.
A little after that, the Democrats started screaming back. They don't like to have the truth thrown in their face. The reality, and the really interesting moment here, though, didn't come until the vote. Now, remind you, when Liz Cheney, the third most powerful Republican in the House, said she would vote to impeach, it seemed like this would maybe be the moment the Republican Party would finally just dispose of Donald Trump. But when the final number came in late this afternoon, only 10 Republicans voted to impeach. Only 10, meaning 96% of Republicans in the House said no way to this, and still, to some extent, are standing with the president. I think that shocks a lot of people. I think it shocks a lot of people. That means two big things. First, the Senate will never convict the president. And second, it's still the party of Donald Trump. It is. At least it is tonight. And he could still run again in 2024 if not convicted by the Senate. Now, I'm not saying he's going to do that. I'm not even saying he should do that. But the Republicans not going along today was a very big